Hey everyone, welcome to Scalar. Today in this video, we will talk about Introduction to Agentic AI, Roadmap, Skills and Salary for AI Engineers. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the rest of the Agentic AI playlist. And if you are serious about building a strong career in AI, check out Scalar's Advanced AI and Machine Learning program. It's designed to help you master the skill needed for the real-world AI role and get you ready for that. For more information, check the link in the description box. Also, tell us in the comment what other AI topics you would like us to cover. So let's get started. So this is the first video of this series, and this is the only video where we are going to talk about theoretical concepts. Now, this particular series is going to be really practical. You will be building a lot of applications together with me. But before we can jump on doing all those amazing things and building up all those amazing applications, it is very much important to understand the evolution of the entire AI space. So, how chatbot became ChatGPT and how it transformed itself to agentic AI is what we are going to talk today. So let's get started. Now, first of all, let's understand how a chatbot functions. So we'll talk about chatbot. And guys, believe me, it is going to be really fun to understand the entire evolution, because when you understand the evolution, you understand and you respect the powers that we use today. So it is going to be really fun. Just focus. So when we started with, and I'm taking you to the time which is around 2018. Around 2018, there was a great buzz about this term, which is chatbot. And a lot of people were fascinated about how chatbot functions. So at this particular time, you will see a lot of attraction coming towards these chatbots, and chatbots were becoming really powerful. uh, all the businesses, all the tech giants were trying to implement chatbot in their applications, and you would be seeing at that time all the websites were also enabling their website with this chatbot to help customer interact with their website and get their FAQ answered. So a very simple example of this chatbot can be seen over a website, or let's take an example of a banking website. So let's take HDFC Bank. HDFC Bank. Now, when you go to this website, you will find out this small pop-up coming from the right side, which is basically known as the chatbot. So this is your chatbot. Now, if you ask this chatbot a very simple question, and that is known as a query. So remember, we are going to use this term throughout the series. A query is a question from the user. So that is what a query is. So let's say the query is how to open a bank account. Now, this is a very simple general question, right? Now, how this chatbot will resolve this query? So this chatbot will take this question or the query, and the bank would have trained this chatbot on a series of questions and answers, which are kind of the repository of FAQs. So this is FAQ repository, where they have preserved all the questions and their suitable answer. Question, suitable answer. Question, suitable answer. Question, suitable answer, and so on. Question, suitable answer. Now, what this chatbot will do? This chatbot will take this query and will go in this particular FAQ repository to find out which particular question in the repository matches to this particular query. So what this chatbot will perform is known as the similarity matching. And this is a very simple idea behind finding out a similar question related to this query. So it is simply finding out which of these questions are very much close or similar to this query. And that is what this chatbot was doing. Now, let's say it was able to find out that this question is very much similar to the user's query, and that is what this chatbot will return. So this chatbot will take this answer and will return to the user this answer. And that is how the traditional chatbots were functioning. They were not doing anything amazing. They were actually looking at a database and they were finding out the similar question using similarity matching and were returning you the best match with the corresponding answer of the best match. Now, in this entire process, if you ask another query, let's say another query is, who is the PM of India? Now, this is the question. Now, what do you think that is this chatbot capable of answering this question? Is this chatbot capable of answering this question? The chatbot will return you the generic answer because this chatbot will not be able to find out any answer related to this question. Any question in the FAQs or the database which is similar to this query. So your chatbot or this chatbot will return a generic answer, and the generic answer would be um, unable to understand your query. Should I connect you with the um, customer representative? So this is what the generic answer that you will get out of this particular chatbot. Now you guys would have understood one thing, that these chatbots were very simple machines and they were designed with two constraints. They were designed with two constraints. Number one constraint is they were doing what is known as the similarity matching. They were not generating a new data. They were not trying to give you something which is very new. They were simply doing what is known as a similarity matching, and that is what we have seen. The second thing which they were limited with is their domain knowledge. So these chatbots were designed with a limited knowledge to function in a limited domain. So to function in a limited domain. And what I mean by domain, I basically mean that this chatbot can answer your questions related to a company in which it has been trained on. This chatbot can answer questions related to a specific industry also. But the point is that this is not a generic chatbot. This chatbot can only answer your questions related to a specific industry or a specific company. They are not generalized chatbot. And that is where scientists started thinking, can they somehow convert this domain specific chatbot to a generic chatbot or a generalized chatbot? So that is where started the next phase of innovation. So I'm just marking this. So this was the start of the next phase of innovation. So Scientists were thinking about it. The objective was that they want to come up with a generic chatbot that is not limited to any company or domain. So they wanted to come up with a chatbot that is generic. Generic means a chatbot which can answer questions related to any industry, a chatbot which can answer questions in any language, a chatbot which can answer questions related to any specific genre. So that is what the scientists were thinking about, how they can come up with a generalized chatbot. But there was a problem. If you want to come up with this generalized chatbot and you have to train this machine on a huge set of data. So this is huge text data, and that is what you need to feed to this machine. So huge text data means the open internet data, open source internet data. And that was the problem which the scientists were facing. So their objective was clear. They wanted to come up with a generalized chatbot which is not limited to a company or a domain. They wanted to come up with a chatbot which can answer your any general question. That means they were required to train a machine on a huge set of textual data, or in simple language, they were required to train a machine on the open source internet data. Now, the problem with this kind of mechanism was that there was no such algorithm or the technique to make this machine learn from this humongous amount of data. And that is where this scientist, whose name was Ashish Vaswani, so in 2017, I think, Mr. Ashish Vaswani wrote a paper, and the paper was named as Attention All You Need. Now, Ashish Vaswani in his paper introduced two concepts. One was the attention mechanism, and one was the usage of transformers. Now, those of you who are thinking, what is this? What is attention? What is transformer? In a simple plain English, these two things are the techniques which help the scientist to carry out this process. This was the process which were the which was getting which was not getting done because there were no such technique to train a machine on such a humongous amount of data. So since the scientists were thinking about training this machine on a humongous amount of data, but there was no such machine learning technique available, Ashish Vaswani in 2017 wrote this paper named Attention All You Need, and that paper introduced this concept, and this concept which created the base of this entire process. So, due to his paper, scientists started thinking that how to enable machine learn from humongous amount of data, and that created the next wave of innovation in the industry. So, using his paper and his idea, Google and one more company, OpenAI, these two companies started working on his paper, and he started implementing his paper. They started implementing attention mechanism. Google were working on their project named Google Bard, BARD, Google Bard, while OpenAI was working on GPT. So they launched GPT-1, they launched GPT-2, but these two launch, which is GPT-1 and GPT-2, were not the public launch. So they were experimental and they were not launched to public, not launched to public. But in 2022, and the date I remember is 20th November or 22 November. So 20th November 2022, ChatGPT was launched by OpenAI, which was basically GPT-3. And this was the very first time the entire humankind was able to get a UI, a user interface, where, so this website was called as chatgpt.com, and here you were able to get a interface where you can interact with this generalized chatbot. So this was basically the generalized chatbot. So this particular GPT-3 which they came up with was nothing but the LLM that we know today, large language model. And this is what the machine I was talking about. So these machines are basically the LLMs, large language models. And why they are known as large language, because they were trained on the textual data, the language data. Large because they were trained on the humongous amount of data, and these are machine learning models. That is the reason large language model. So they were large language model. And let me tell you one more thing. Ashish Vaswani at that time was working with Google Minds as a research scientist, and that is when he wrote this paper. So I hope you guys were able to understand the entire evolution of how chatbot became ChatGPT. And there was only one requirement: how to convert this domain specific chatbot to a generalized chatbot, and that is how they were able to achieve it. Now, there was a problem with this launch. ChatGPT 3, when it was launched, it was a dumb model. It was not artificial intelligence, it was artificial memory. It was a dumb model. And why I'm calling it as a dumb model? Because this model was only generating text based on the previous text that it has already generated. So let's understand the process, how this dumb model was functioning, and why I am calling it as a artificial memory. Now, first of all, let's learn the understand the learning process, how this LLM learned the entire internet data. So what they did, they used a very simple technique. So for the learning purpose, they used a simple technique of finding out how many times a particular word was followed by another word. And this was also the part of generation process also. So the learning and generation happened in both the similar mechanism was used. And those of you who are from the technical side or the machine learning side, they would know that in the attention mechanism we have the encoder and the decoder architecture. That is because first, this machine was understanding your text and then it was generating the text. I will explain you that part also. But as of now, let's understand how these LLMs were trained. So they were trained using a very simple logic of word prediction. So let's say if I tell you to write a story about Indian boy. Let's say this is the input or the question that I give to you. Now, how ChatGPT will generate text for this? ChatGPT will first of all understand this entire context. So, step number one is known as context understanding, which basically means ChatGPT will understand what actually has to be done. ChatGPT will understand that there has to be a story which has to be written about an Indian boy. Once it is done, it will go into the generation phase. Generation phase. And in the generation phase, the generation will happen sequentially, or I would say iteratively. How? ChatGPT will generate the first word. So 90% of the time, whenever the humankind has written a story, it has always started with the word once. So this is what ChatGPT has learned from the historical data. So internally, ChatGPT has learned from the huge internet data. And who created this huge internet data? We humans, right? So huge internet data by humans, that whenever we humans, or I would say they, or let me write both, we humans or they wrote a story, 90% of the time it was started with a word once. And that is how the first word will be generated once. So now what this ChatGPT will do? ChatGPT will take this word once. ChatGPT will also take this context. See, context matlab what actually is the task. So ChatGPT will take the input as context also. And now ChatGPT will take this into their learning and will now try to predict the next word. So given this context, so what is the probability of the next word n given once has been generated and the context is this? That is what ChatGPT will do in iteration number 2. So after once 90% of the time humankind has generated upon. So the next token is upon. Now next iteration I will provide once upon together with the context C. So this will go inside, this will go inside the LLM. And now ChatGPT will try to figure out, given once upon and the context, what is the next word that will follow these two words. And now third iteration, once upon a with the context will go back to the LLM. And now the next word will generate time. Once upon a time. Now once upon a time will go together with the context in the LLM, and the next word will be getting generated there. And that is how sequentially LLM will generate the entire text for you. Now this is what internally is happening. So when I go back looking at the process of chatbot were not generating. They were only finding out the nearest match of your query with the question in the database and will returning you the corresponding answer to you. Now, using this entire innovation that happened, we were able to come up with a machine which is able to predict, and by making predictions it was able to generate text, and that is how it is able to generate text for you. So when you ask ChatGPT to write a story, it is able to generate text based on what it has learned from the historical human data, from the historical human language data, because we human has generated a good amount of language data, and that is how ChatGPT was able to generate. But let's get back to the same question, why I am calling it as artificial memory and a dumb model. The reason I'm calling it as a dumb model and artificial memory is because this particular model, which was GPT-3, lack so many things. And you would have seen in the news also that initially when GPT-3 was launched, people were making a lot of fun of it, and why it was getting so much criticism. Why? The answer is, it was generating text without thinking and without uh, keeping in mind what actually has to be generated. So sometimes the generated text was very wrong. Since it was generating text, there was a great problem of hallucination, which is wrong text generation. So if I ask ChatGPT to tell me who is the PM of India, now if ChatGPT is not aware about this, ChatGPT will still generate some random text, because it is generating random text without keeping in mind what actually is correct and what actually is not correct, because it is a predictive model, it is just predicting. And that is the reason today, even today, a lot of people face the problem of hallucination, which basically mean ChatGPT can generate something which in reality is not present, or in reality is not true. The second problem, so hallucination is the first problem. Second problem was, it was not able to reason. Now, reason means it was not able to think iteratively as we human think. Now, if I ask you to prepare a cup of tea for me or a cup of coffee, you will plan the entire execution. You will first think, okay, this is my task. I have to prepare a cup of coffee. Then you will think what all ingredients I need. So you will start planning. Then you will start executing. But ChatGPT initially was not good at reasoning. That is the reason ChatGPT was failing to answer many mathematical questions. The third problem was, ChatGPT was not connected to the latest data. So there was a knowledge cutoff. Knowledge cutoff. That means if ChatGPT has been trained till 2022, it will able to answer all your questions till that time. It will not be able to answer the latest questions. Together with that, ChatGPT was only limited to their knowledge base, plus ChatGPT was not able to generate anything apart the textual data. So limited generation. So these were the problems with ChatGPT 3 when it was launched. And that is where the next phase of innovation came into existence. So from 2022 till 2025, as of today, all the innovations and the developments that were made to get this artificial memory the title of artificial intelligence. Now let me tell you what I mean by this transition. So all these developments that happened, number one development that was happen is reasoning. So ChatGPT were given with the concept of reasoning. Reasoning means now if you ask ChatGPT any question, ChatGPT will start questioning itself. What should be the first step? What should be the second step? How to approach this problem? So this gave the power to ChatGPT to start thinking logically, to start decoding the question into multiple steps and then execute it. That was one of the major power that was given to ChatGPT. Second power was multimodality. Now this basically means now ChatGPT is able to input and output in multimodality. Matlab, ChatGPT can take your image as the input, voice as the input, video as the input, and can generate the same thing in the output also. So when ChatGPT was launched, it was limited to only textual data. But over the period of time, all the innovation that happened in the past 3 years gave ChatGPT the power of multimodality also. Third thing which was given to ChatGPT was the access to tools. Now today ChatGPT is capable of accessing multiple tools outside its learning. So if I ask ChatGPT to access internet, ChatGPT can do that today. So tool basically means external services. And now even you can connect multiple external tools with ChatGPT to get your task done. And the final thing which was given to ChatGPT over this period of time was the power to control. Now, in order to understand the last 2 points, let's understand what I mean by this. So, we will take one example. Let's say I want ChatGPT. So, my query is I want ChatGPT to, uh, number one, based on the weather today at my location, suggest an order breakfast for me using Zomato. Now, do you think ChatGPT is capable of doing this? So let's try to logically break down this entire question and let's see how ChatGPT can solve this question and what is the external requirement ChatGPT would need to solve this question. So number one, what ChatGPT will do will understand the context of this question. Context understanding, which basically mean what is the actual requirement, what the user is looking for me. So ChatGPT will try to summarize this question into few steps which define the goal of the entire question. So it is goal defining, and the goal is look for breakfast options using Zomato based on weather today at user's location and order it. So this is the goal. Now ChatGPT will go into the planning phase. So after this was step number one, context understanding. Second step is plan. Now plan is done before execution. So first it will plan and then it will go into the execution phase. But first plan. For the planning, the very first step is to understand what are the requirements. So first of all, ChatGPT has to check the location of the user. So check location of the user. Second is ChatGPT has to check the weather condition based on the location. Check weather condition based on the location. Third thing, ChatGPT has to check the various breakfast options based on the weather and the location. Check various breakfast options based on weather and location. Fourth, now ChatGPT will go to Zomato and look for options Zomato and look for availability. Fifth, order it. So this is the entire plan. Now, in order to execute step number one, ChatGPT needs some external tool which can help ChatGPT with the location information. So some tool which can help ChatGPT with the location data. To execute step number two, ChatGPT again need a tool which can help ChatGPT with the weather information based on the location. To answer the third question, ChatGPT does not need any tool because ChatGPT has this much knowledge about the various breakfast options based on the weather and location. So no external tool, no external tool can be done using internal knowledge base. To answer the fourth question, ChatGPT again need a tool which is the Zomato tool. Order it, again ChatGPT need a tool which is, let's say, UPI or some kind of bank access. So now you can see that if you want ChatGPT to get this task done, you need to provide ChatGPT with multiple external tools in order to execute this. This is what agentic AI is. So the term that is becoming really popular nowadays, which is agentic AI, is what we have just seen. So this is your LLM, which is ChatGPT, which is now the artificial brain. So this is now the intelligence that I was talking about, artificial brain. And since this brain, artificial memory, can understand, because it can understand your context, can plan, can control, and can generate. These are the four powers which this LLM has now. This LLM, acting as a artificial brain, will be able to execute step number one, will be able to execute step number two, which is planning. So in the planning phase, it will also map that in order to execute step one, it requires this tool. In order to execute step two, it requires this tool, and so on. And then it will go into the execution phase. And finally, it will generate the response. Generate response, where it will just tell you that okay, the order has been done, it will be delivered to you in this much time. So all these external tools which I have added to this LLM, tool 1, tool 2, tool 3, tool 4, the addition of these tools with the LLM gave rise to this section of the AI word, which is agentic AI. So agentic AI is the field of AI where we are giving LLMs the power of autonomy. Autonomy means they are able to execute the plan, they are also able to think, they are also able to change the plan, and that is not sequential. So for example, if Zomato is not, if there is no option available in Zomato, they might switch to another food delivery application. Or if, let's say, there are no options available at the given location based on the given weather condition for the breakfast, then LLM can also take a step back and can basically try to ask you, Can they change the location? Can they look for any similar location based on, let's say, 20 kilometers from your area? So they are getting into the autonomy phase. And agentic AI is what the field of AI is, where we give LLMs the power of autonomy by connecting them with external tools. That is what agentic AI is. But there is one more question. You guys must be thinking about it. See, if this is agentic AI, then what is an agent? Now, agent is one part of the entire agentic AI. Agent is a combination of LLM plus a tool. That is what agent is. So, for example, if I have created a weather agent, weather agent. Now, this agent has a very specific task. If you give this agent a question to find out what is the weather condition at this and this place, so let's give this agent a question. The question or the query is, what's the weather at Delhi NCR? Now, what this weather agent will do, since this weather agent is not a simple tool, because if you want to use a tool, you need to provide your input not in a language but in a specific format. Remember, all these tools take input in a specific format. But since this is not a tool, this is an agent, you have given your question as a plain English or as a plain language. So this is a language based question. Language. Now, since this agent has both the access to the tool as well as the LLM, first, the LLM will decode your question. Second, it will also generate input to the tool. Third, it will execute the tool. Fourth, it will take the output from the tool. Fifth, it will generate the response in a language. And that is what the output is. So this is what an agent is. So agents are very specific task driven machines which has two components, the memory as well as the access to the tool. Advantage is you talk to an agent like a human. You give your question as a plain language English and you get the response as a plain language English. You don't need to worry about the input structure of the tool. So this is what is happening internally. It will decode the question, generate the input to the tool, execute the tool, get the output from the tool, generate the response in the plain English, and that will be your output from the agent. So this is agent and this is your agentic AI, where you connect multiple agents to solve a bigger problem. That is the framework of agentic AI. So this is where the industry has progressed. We started with the ideation of chatbot. Scientists thought of creating a generic chatbot. That is how they created ChatGPT. Then scientists started thinking how they can give more power, more capabilities to this chat GPT. That is how now today we are in the phase of agentic AI, where we are talking about giving autonomy to LLMs, where they can perform anything end to end. So that is what we are today. We are over here. Now, one thing which I'm going to talk about is the scope of jobs. Like, now, after all these things, where are we? Like, where we can get a job? So, the entire job landscape of this industry, which is the AI industry, has two sections. One is, or I would say, the entire AI industry has two sections. One is the users and other one is the developers. Now, users are those people who are using AI to generate something using UI. UI means user interface. So if you are using ChatGPT and from its web interface, which is chatgpt.com, if you are using ChatGPT from its web interface and you are getting a email generated, getting an image generated, getting something generated out of ChatGPT, you are the user of AI. And being a user is not a skill that industry is looking for. Please remember this. I'm going to quote this very clearly. Being a user of AI is not an employable skill. It is the default skill which industry will now assume that you know. It is the default skill that industry assumes that you now know. So if I go back in the year 2013 14, at that time, all the hirings that were happening, people and the employers were assuming that people, those who are trying to apply, they are aware about how to use a computer. So computer was a default skill that they assume that you know. Similarly, now today and proceeding forward in the next 2 years, or I will say 1 year, industry will start assuming that you know AI and you know how to use various AI tools. So usage of AI tools is like a default skill. But those of you who are not aware about it, how you can become the good users of AI, the very first and the foremost important skill that you need to have is writing a good prompt. See, remember one thing, you can use all these AI tool in the best possible way if you know how to write a good prompt. So we have also created a very good video about how to write a good prompt, which where we have explained the concept of 7 tag prompting technique. You can look at that video. I have added the link in the I section. You can check it out. But if you want to become the users of AI, number one, start learning how to write a good prompt, because if you know this, 90% of the problem is solved. You will become a good user of AI, but this will not guarantee you that you will get a job, because industry is not hiring people who can use AI. Industry is looking for people who can actually use AI to build something, and that is where this next section comes into picture, which is the developer section. Now, the developer section is also divided into three segments. I would say two segments. One is the coder and one is the non-code, or I would say, let's say non-code. So, no code or code. Now, you can become a developer. Developer means using AI to develop something on top of it. So, AI based application. AI based applications. So, where you are developing some AI applications using the power of AI in your company. So, for example, let's talk about this coding way. So, if you are currently a coder, let's say you are a software developer, or let's say you are a front end developer or back end developer, you are already coding, but how you can code plus you can integrate AI into the current system. That is what the industry is looking for. They are looking for people who can also enable AI in their current infrastructure. Now, let me take one example. Let's say you are building a website. Now, can you add the AI into it? Can you add AI chatbot? Can you add AI applications? Can you add AI interface? Can you do something using AI? Let's say you are building up a website, or not website, let's say mobile app. Can you integrate the AI chatbot over here? So this is what the requirement is. Now there is no one path of becoming a AI developer, but the origin or the start point is you learn the basics of NLP, natural language processing, because this is very much important to understand the functioning of LLM. Second is you learn the basics of neural networks. Again, the basic will be enough. Third is you learn advanced Python. All the latest AI technologies and the frameworks that has came in the recent time are on Python. That is, advanced Python is required. Fourth is the knowledge of frameworks. So frameworks such as LangChain and Llama Index. So these are the frameworks which will help you to create your AI applications on Python. And this is what we will talk about in this series, how we can create applications, AI application using LangChain. This will be the core of this entire series. But if I talk about non-coder way, now this is the section which is available for those people who are trying to become the AI developers, but they don't like to code. That is where you start creating AI workflows. And to create AI workflows, you can use platforms such as N8N, Zapier, Make.com. All these platforms are available to you to create AI workflows without coding anything. But again, this also requires a good understanding about how various tools work. And when I say tool, I'm not talking about AI tool, I'm talking about web tools, I am talking about APIs, I am talking about LLMs. This understanding is still required. Now there is one more section that has came up in the market, and I believe that will also come very strongly in the market, which is the requirement of AI product managers. AI product managers, or I would say these are the AI enablers. Now I hope you will believe and agree that still 99% of the businesses are not ready for AI. Not ready for AI. Now they are not ready for AI, not because they don't want to go into AI. They are not ready because they don't know the scope of AI. They don't know where to use AI. They don't know how to use AI. Now the problem is that they cannot directly jump and go to the developers. Going to a developer is a problem to them because developers want the problem statement to be solved. And since the business is not aware about what is the exact problem that they can solve using AI, they cannot directly go to the developers. So they need a person who is like a mid person, like a middle person, who is not only aware about the business operations but also aware about various technology aspects of AI, also aware about what is happening in the sector of AI. So, AI product manager is like a middle person sitting between the business and the developers. Now, these AI product managers are those people who know business operations, plus, they also know the AI side, the tech side. So these people need not to be the developers. These people need not to be the coders. These people are those people who know where AI can be used and how can be used and what AI tools can be required to get it done. Do I need to code or do I need to create a workflow? Do I need to use Python or do I need to use any other framework? This kind of understanding is required by these people, AI product managers. And I'm super, uh, I'm super, I would say, I'm super positive about this field getting into the industry very soon, and you will see a lot of job opportunities coming into picture. But in order to summarize, this is what we are going to focus in this entire series: how we can use LangChain to create AI applications. And this series will be for developers, and we will be looking at the code way of creating AI applications. So I hope you guys have now the detailed understanding of the entire AI space and what is actually happening in this space. Um, we will be coming up with a lot of videos, and we have planned around 13 videos in this series, but let's see how many videos we are able to post in this series. uh, I request all of you to please post your comments. Please like this video, and if you have any questions, please don't forget to ask your questions in the comment section. We are going to do amazing thing for you. We are going to come up with an amazing content for you. So for that, keep liking, keep following us, and please follow our channel Scalers.